We're recording now. Okay, great. Hi,
Hi.
George. How are you?
All right. Thanks you for inviting me to your group.
It's good to hear from you, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. And you're in the UK, right?
I am, yes, in Oxford.
Okay. And maybe you can tell people a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm 41. I was a former academic, so I used to work at the university, not in Oxford. Just moved to Oxford after my diagnosis, and I did architecture at the university and worked in history of architecture. It became apparent after a while that working in academia is not that easy when you have Friedreichs ataxia. So I stopped. That was quite a hard decision, but yeah.
So, what was your diagnosis journey like? Maybe you can walk us through that.
Oh yeah, that's probably quite familiar to a familiar story to a lot of us. I noticed something was odd, something was wrong basically all my life with walking, and balance was really noticeable, and it got worse over the years. And then I finally went to a neurologist in Bath when I was working at Bath University, and another university city in the UK, and got diagnosed after genetic testing. So that was great. They sent a letter through the mail saying you got this disease I never heard of, and good luck.
So, how long was that journey? Like, did they find FA right away, or did they have to do it a few times?
It took over a year for them to figure it out, and I had to be very persistent by constantly going to the hospital and telling them, no, I'm not leaving until we actually have some explanation for what's going on here. Something is not right. I don't know what it is. I thought it would have been a benign cancer, maybe in the brain. I don't know, something that is affecting my balance. And I had so many MRIs, so many scans, and the last option after a year was then the genetic test, which came back with the results. Now, life is always interesting in itself, and at that time I already had a job offer from a university in Turkey, and I prepared my move to Turkey with my wife, and everything was dry and sealed and signed, and then I had the diagnosis, and it became clear that maybe leaving the UK would not be such a good idea. So we moved to Oxford, and
So,
yeah, that was fun.
how has sport impacted your life with FA?
Yeah, I reckon that's a big question. The question I ask myself is over and over was, why did the diagnosis happen so late? There were, I remember incidents in my childhood where it should have been obvious, where we should have gone, where we should have done something, but it was never that severe that I pushed my family to do that, which also coincided with me being an ambitious rower in my youth and really trying to get in the German national rowing team. So from the age of 6, I started rowing. By the age of 17, I went to international rowing competitions. I got a couple of German national team titles, German national rowing titles. It's just a lot of work that went into rowing, which strengthens a lot of muscular groups, which I think are essential for our ability, especially our ability to remain able to walk.
Right.
And then with the diagnosis at 35, at first I didn't take it serious, which is probably something that is quite familiar to a lot of us as well. And then it became clearer over time that I have to take it serious. If no one else takes it serious, I still have to live with it. And then I stopped working for academia, finished a couple articles that I had in the pipeline. There are still a couple that aren't finished and probably never will. And said goodbye to teaching, and then switched slowly back into rowing, into focusing on exercise. Let's see what I can do with on the muscular level to fight this, to challenge the degeneration. There are a lot of things I probably cannot tackle with the right exercise or diet or whatever. But with a muscular system, with the ability to walk, that might actually work. And I've been rowing for 2 years now, maybe 3 years, but last year something happened. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I couldn't row because all the clubs closed and my gym closed, and that's been challenging.
I think like I've never actually rowed on like in a boat on the water really, but I love the rowing machine, and lots of people who don't do it maybe don't realize how much of a full body workout it is. Like you're using your legs, or you're using your core, definitely using your upper body.
Yeah, I'm not that concerned about the upper body.
Yeah, right.
It definitely every day is leg day. That's what I used to say in the gym when all the kids came in getting beat ready, and yeah, that's not my concern. I don't need to look good at the beach. I just need my legs to keep working. And I think there are better exercises like deadlifts and squats, which are also a little bit tricky, and do not attempt them on your own. I cannot stress that enough. Do not try them on your own. Get a help from someone who knows what he or she is doing. But rowing, of course, is my default sport, and that is something I've done for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours every day as a teenager. And that's what I have to try to do now, to just get back into this excessive level of exercise and do that. And then we see what happens. I mean,
yeah.
There are a couple of differences I already noticed on the rowing machine, and that is the leg coordination. That when I started, or let's just say last year, when I started focusing on how to improve my rowing machine movement, then I always compare that with an 18-year-old me or 20-year-old me. And there are differences in the movement which are worse. And I just completed a million-meter challenge, so it's 1 million meter in 10 weeks. And at the end of it, a lot of the leg placement can be corrected. It's a lot smoother now. Of course, I need to focus on these muscle groups and make it happen. And it's not easy. I do sweat a lot. I put a lot of water through my system. but there is a positive effect noticeable, and I'm pretty sure it helped me with walking as well.
So, what is your motivation and how do you deal with challenges or fears?
That's excellent question. Motivation skills. When you're 18-year-old and you have your whole life in front of you, and someone, a little bird, tweets in your ear saying you could make the Olympics, what you could go to the Olympics, you're good enough for that, you might be good enough for that. And then you turn 19, you turn 20, the days and days of rowing, and they tell you, oh, you're actually not good enough. Then you say, oh, I got my whole life ahead of me. I want to study archaeology. I want to go out in the world. I joined the army for a year. Things you just have to do and things you want to do. And now with 40, that is a bit different. So it's a lot harder to row for an hour every day, to go on that machine for an hour. And also my future job prospects, what are they now? I cannot work in academia. I trained for 12 years to qualify for what I'm doing, and that is not happening. So what's my motivation now? I say being able to work, support my family, being there for my two lovely children, and spend time with my wife as long as I can. Be able to walk. Another thing is Paralympics are, of course, all of a sudden a possibility. So if I manage to get back to my rowing levels as a kid, then maybe you see me in the Paralympics in 3 years. I don't know. Motivation is it's a very good question. I do not have a perfect answer for that. I'm very sorry. You just have to take every day as it comes and try your best. You have to keep doing it because that's what moves us, or moves me literally. I think if I stop, I lose my ability to move quite quickly.
Now, you did a marathon to raise funds for Ataxia UK. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a cool story. A friend of mine who happens to be a rowing coach of a local charity, and also the charity that put the rowing machine into my house, which really helped during the last lockdown. We know each other for 30 years. He just happens to live in Oxford as well. He said, well, if you struggle walking, why not try running? And I just looked at him and said, how am I supposed to do that? And he said, oh, don't you worry, old man, I'll give you a hand. And you may have seen the videos on the Instagram where we hold hands and he guides me along the distance. And it's only a half marathon. My days of a full marathon are gone. I did one full marathon, not many, and now I do half marathons. And we did that for last 3 years, not last year, so last 4 years with 1 year off because of coronavirus. But yeah, running is a challenge. I struggle running a lot. It takes me 3.5 hours to complete how long is it? 12 miles, 21K. Don't know, you might. Are you miles or kilometers?
In Canada, we use a mix of both. But I know the marathon is 26.2 miles, right? I don't know what that is in kilometers.
Yeah, half that, so 30 miles, 21 something.
Right.
Kilometers. and we will try to do that this year again. And I have to see if there's any improvement in my coordination after putting so much effort in glutes or in leg muscles, which are quite weak. That's another benefit of training a lot. You start identifying muscle groups that are not firing, that are more degenerate than others, and the quads, the big leg muscle, that one is fine. It's the little flimsy ones that betray you first.
Yeah.
And training these is difficult, but possible.
Yeah. It's I've tried to train like your ankles and things like that. It's very specific exercises you have to do, and it's very targeted. It's sometimes hard to get at.
Yeah, I tried to do heavy lifting as a getting in with the bodybuilders, and then just focus on lower body and legs, and that fires up my heart rate. That old ticker is still working. That's quite good. When I had my cardiologist appointment, my annual cardiologist appointment, I getting all clear now. They were a bit concerned when I told them what I'm doing, and my heart muscles are apparently getting better and better. So that's not going to stop me. Means more.
I
See
think
what this journey leads to.
yeah. I think a point worth noting that you mentioned when you were going for the marathon, like, I mean, I guess this has to do with motivation. Sometimes when we don't feel that we can do a thing, right? It's important to have people around you who say, well, who aren't going to let things be, right?
Yeah.
Like your friend said, hang on, wait a second, we're not going to give up that easily.
We're not going to give up. But that's something I learned in my childhood. You just don't give up. You always finish a race if it takes you 8 minutes or longer. I remember a race in Berlin where the weather was so bad that I sunk twice in my boat. You still don't give up. You finish the race. And yeah, I'm not the last one coming in the half marathon at the moment. But it would be nice to struggle less along the road. The first year we were 10 people. 9 friends and me said, all right, we support you. And they flew over from Germany and from the UK. And the second year we were 25 people. The third year we were 40. So having a good network of friends surrounding you to cheer you on, to motivate each other. Not all of them are athletes, not all of them are fit. There are a lot of people in that group that never ran a half marathon before, and they seize this opportunity. They're hungry for this opportunity as well to join a team where they're not being judged on the speed, and it's quite fun. It's cool. I'm looking forward to doing it again this year. Not necessarily for the running bit. Running is really tedious and boring, but definitely for the group, for the family that you can surround yourself with. That's a big motivation point as well. When we talk about motivation, get a team around you that cheers you on to do things you thought you couldn't do, and maybe they thought they couldn't do it, and then they see you going for it and look at themselves and say, well, if he can do it.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us what Brooks Sports is and how you got involved with them?
Yeah, Brooksport is at the beginning, it's my nearest gym. That's a university facility for Brooks University, which has a sports center, quite a good sports center with world-class athletes, funny enough, rowers coming out of it. I'm not part of their rowing program as my numbers are miles behind what they're doing. They're really, really cool kids. And also they are 20 years younger than me. I can't compete, but I don't want to compete with them. And over the years, I've been training at Brooks. I got closer and closer to Brooks Sport facility, to the management. And then last year they approached me and said, hey, this is really cool what you're doing. As you're here every day, you're training as if there's no tomorrow. Let's do something together for UK's Disability History Month. And from that, it kind of spiraled. So they are supporting, and what I'm doing there is also bound to the coronavirus restrictions, which means they had to shut down during the UK lockdowns. And then I still rely on my rowing charity, Hinckley Sculling School, which is just a fantastic network you can get around you. Brooks Sport is definitely an integral part in me picking this challenge with Friedreichs ataxia.
So, what advice would you give to someone with ataxia who's apprehensive of getting involved in sport? And the second part of that question, what's the difference between exercise and sport?
Whoa, I don't really know the answer to the second one, but the first one is a question I got asked before. I would say never stop rowing. I quit rowing at the age of 20. I think I benefited for years from that level of exercise. And I went to several excavations with the excavation teams. I had limited physical problems. And then it kind of crept up on me and it got worse and worse and worse. And that coincident, maybe not, with me focusing on my academic career and reducing my casual fitness or casual sport levels, so running 3 times a week. Now I would say that's not enough anymore. It's the consistency, it's every day. I would say to someone in the teens, if A is not going away, find a career that enables you to live with FA as mobile as you can. If that career involves sport, do that. And I got a degree in architecture. I can't use it. It's wasted time. It's not wasted. It was cool. It was fun. But from a point of Friedreichs ataxia, if I would have invested that in physical activity, maybe I still would not have known today and I had this disease.
Yeah. So what do you do for fun besides rowing?
Well, in the UK, we've been locked in for 4 months almost now, which is really getting to us. that we can't go out, all cafes are shut. I really like sitting in a cafe in the sunshine drinking a coffee, but I just like to be out. I like to see people, and that is not possible at the moment, but it will, and summer is coming. So I really look forward to seeing people again.
And what are your plans for the future? I know that's kind of a loaded question because if anyone knows, like people, there's kind of no point of anyone making plans, let alone people with ataxia.
There are always plans for the future, and we always have to make plans for the future. It's very important. Mine obviously involves more sport. I don't think I'm doing enough at the moment, especially when I look back. If teenage George could do it, 40-year-old George can do it too. So more rowing, that's what that means. I want to do more rowing. There are a lot of things I would find quite cool to do. So I don't know if it's possible yet. One is, of course, Paralympics. I need to see where I stand with rowing numbers, whether they, another question is, do they want to have a 40-year-old man in the team? I mean, I can do that sport, that activity, and that's a massive boost for motivation when you actually get the national team colors sent to your home and you have all this surrounding that really makes you smile that you're part of this team. So I might give that a shot. Another thing is maybe a world record. I don't know. Need to see where I stand with the rowing figures. It's certainly all of a sudden, because of Friedreichs ataxia, I'm in a different category of athlete than I was as a child, which does not make it easier, but it certainly shifts the goalpost. So plans for the future, more sport. That's probably my answer to everything. Whatever you can do more of it. It's not bad for you. Do more.
That I guess that was the question I was trying to get to before, to highlight the difference between sport and exercise, just like going to the gym and lifting weights or doing whatever on an individual level. With sport, there's this sense of competition, right? Either with yourself or with someone else. And how do you feel that benefit is a benefit?
Well, if you put it like that, I'd say the motivation is different. But when you go out there and you have not only to beat you have to beat someone else, or at least try your best to beat someone else. That is something I haven't done in 25 years or 22 years. So it's a jump back into a younger me. But I never really liked that part. I was much more fond of the training bit, the tedious hours. I find it very meditational, just doing the same routine over and over and over. And then also we get back to rowing. When you're on the water and it's early in the morning, you see sunrise, you see the reflection on the water, city in the background. It's a beautiful, very beautiful sport, or it can be a very beautiful sport. And fitness is a very good start. Whatever you can do to stay active, do that. And if you think you are able to push on further into competitive sport, there are many sports that qualify for the Paralympics, and there are many teams that should be lucky to have any of us.
So last question. How do people get a hold of you if they want to?
Yeah, probably Instagram is my go-to social media at the moment. I do not like social media. I had a Facebook account, which is probably still full of me, with pictures of me being in Egypt or whatever. If you can find it, I doubt it's findable. It's quite cryptic. I'm more of an academic than I appear to be, let's put it that way. And Brooks Sport then forced me to open an Instagram account and promote Brooks Sport, of course, and what I'm doing and reaching out and showing also what it does to you when you start exercising on the amount I'm doing. There is, apart from the visual benefits, which I mean, it's not the main goal, but I take it if I have to. It's also the clear benefit of getting more and more control over your movements. And unfortunately, that's all it does. It just gives me more control over my movements. My hand coordination is terrible. Probably we all know how that feels when you try to write your name and you can't. But I can stand up. That is definitely a benefit from exercising. So Instagram, short answer, Instagram.
Yeah.
If you want to reach me, text me on Instagram.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for this opportunity to hear from you. I would like to ask everyone to unmute themselves and kindly raise their hand if they have a question for George. And let's see. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Just raise your hand.
Is that Jesse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, George, do you ever row more than singles? Do you ever row doubles or quads in rowing?
Yeah, of course I did. I did the whole lot. When you start at a young age, you just in your club they put you in any boat they want to. Now I was fastest in a single, which probably means I'm not a good team worker. But the boat class I'm focusing on is now the quad. So sweeping, and I train that in a pair, which is the most complicated boat I think it is.
Right.
And I avoid adaptive rowing, as I don't think I need this at this stage. But if it happens, it happens.
What's that rowing?
In an adaptive single, you have floats next to it, which means if you lose balance or grip, you
Oh,
will
I
not
see.
fall. So I'm still rowing without them.
Okay. And what kind of rowing machine do you use?
What?
What kind of rowing machine do you use?
Yes. The standard would be a Concept 2. That
Yeah.
is the box standard. I think that's a good one. The one I got at the moment on loan from Hinckley is a Row Perfect, which is an American company, I think, and it's a lot more complicated than a Concept 2. But if you want to start rowing, start on a Concept.
Yeah, I've got a Concept too. Yeah. Do you know anything about the water rowers?
I heard of them. I've never rowed on one of them, and I don't know anyone in the semi-professional rowing world that uses a water rower.
Oh, okay.
They are a lot quieter, I heard. Again, I've never never used one.
They're kind of expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, there. My gym has one.
I would always go to a Concept 2 in a gym. If they had a Row Perfect, I would give that a go, as that machine is a lot more challenging for us than the Concept 2. But
Okay.
that's something you really need to try. The seat on a Row Perfect is slightly moving to the side.
Okay.
Again, that is something I noticed over the millimeter, that at the beginning I really struggled with keeping balance doing the strokes. I lost a lot of stroke length because I lost balance and terminated the stroke early to regain balance. On a Concept 2, you're it's more of a cushion, it's more comfy, it's the good old armchair you can rely on. Bring you home.
Amy, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what is your handle on Face or on Instagram, because I can't find you.
It's Ataxian Athlete.
Ataxian Athlete. Thank you.
You're welcome. I tried to highlight the athlete point on the Instagram handle rather than just saying Georg Herdt.
Henry, do you have a question?
Yeah. How does a person get into a rowing competition?
Wow, yeah. Now, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would have said sign up to a rowing club, any club, or just go. I mean, the indoor championships, you basically show up on the day. I would not recommend that, but they will let you in and you can row. Now, for people with disabilities, that is a lot more complicated. And I don't really know how it works yet. I know you have to be classified according to your grade of disability. So they know your level of competition. And I think that only works on a club level. But then you need to find a rowing club that supports adaptive rowing. And we have one in Oxford I know of, and I think the nearest one is already 50 miles away from here. They then sign you on. So, as with everything, disabilities make things more complicated.
Melissa, you had a question?
I just wondered if you were classified for your disability at your, when you, with your rowing.
I get my classification in June. I'm in touch with the German national rowing team, and I'm also in touch with the British national rowing team. But my classification is pending, and I don't know whether whether Friedreichs Ataxia classifies in the group. I think it does, except for they sent me the form, and Friedreichs Ataxia has its own segment. It's even named in that. But I can tell you more about it after I actually got my classification.
Isn't isn't Friedrichs named after a German gentleman?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Nikolai Friedreicher, or Nikolaus Friedreicher, I think. But I got that from Wikipedia, so yeah, classification is, I do understand why sports on that level have to go for a classification system, as not all limitations are way similar. And I'm pretty sure I get classified in the weakest possible group, and someone which means I will not race against someone who cannot use his legs, which when it comes to rowing is quite a disadvantage if you haven't got the powerful legs. So I do understand that, but before I can compete, I have to go for the qualification.
Right.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that had questions? Oh, David?
David, yeah, look, George, I've got ataxia and balance problems, and I'd have to difficulty get in a canoe or any kind of boat that's bobbing around the water. How do you get into the boat? Do you have help?
I rely on help.
Yeah, I can.
Also, I remember as a kid, I had this beautiful wooden boat, single, and I dropped it. So I wouldn't say that there was no sign of some form of early limitation. It's just you don't drop your boat. And these boats are quite expensive. Now I get help. My boat is carried for me. My team, again, the team you surround yourself with is so important on your ability to do this.
Yeah.
So do they put you in the boat on dry land and then push it in the water, or how does
No.
that work? Do they drop you in with a helicopter?
Well, I haven't done a single yet, and I stay clear of those for a while. What happened 2 years ago when we were still allowed to row, I would slowly sit down next to the boat and then shift my bottom in first. And then when I'm strapped in, the rest of the team goes in and pushes the boat off. Again, over time, that got better, and I could actually help pushing the boat. I'm convinced there's a positive impact on too much sport, but that is also something we have to be very clear about it. It is not a 3 times a week level of exercise. It's ideally every day. I can't do every day. Probably none of us can. I still try every day, but then some days your body just tells you to stay home.
David?
One more question. How far or how long do you ride?
Well,
Row.
the last 10 weeks I did, let's say, about an hour a day.
Yeah.
And depending on your skill level, an hour takes me 15 kilometers. That is probably fast enough. It's if you are not wired like me and you don't find the meditation and the constant whoosh of the flywheel, then you can also watch TV whilst you're on the road. It's not that you're going anywhere, you're just quite stationary. But it is an hour a day, and I watch my heart rate quite carefully, which is something you don't need to do in your 20s, but now you need to do that.
Especially with Friedreichs, right?
Yeah, apparently that can be fixed, but that's what my cardiologist is there for. Yeah. And I train at the moment around 150 heart rate, and hold that for an hour.
And is for an hour is that always on your rower at home? Like how often are you getting in the water?
Well, last year we simply couldn't. Everything is closed in the UK. I would prefer to go on the water as it's much prettier and also it feels easier. You have a lot more distraction around you. It's not quite the same monotony of every stroke. The minutes pass quicker. And probably on the water we would go for 2 hours or something like that to cover enough distance. And it's also a bigger boat and not just me, but due to Corona, it was just me in my son's bedroom.
Any other questions? No? Okay, then I guess we'll let you go, George. Have a good night. And
Thank you.
you.
Enjoy your evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stay
Thank
strong.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.